Welcome. I'm Olivia Bryant, and I'm being joined today by Daryll Bryant. Love the last name, by the way. This is our first relaunch and re-recording of the Culture Chat. Thank you, Daryll, for being with me today.
Thank you, Olivia, for having me, and thank you to your guests for allowing me to grace your presence.
Absolutely. So, Daryll is a transformational leader, speaker, author, and business advisor with a distinguished career in manufacturing operations. He is passionate about providing outstanding results for his clients through the winning of excellence system, which creates potent cultural and operational shifts that give underperforming organizations a competitive edge. I also know about Daryll that he is a passionate father, as well as a native New Yorker, which I can relate to from my own upbringing, and is now joining us from North Carolina. So, Daryll, would you like to tell us a little bit more about your personal, professional background and who you are today at this point in your life and career?
Yes, I would. Well, first and foremost, I am a father of three. Probably my most shining achievement is three great children, two of which have graduated college. They've all studied business, and my third, I have a son and two daughters, and my son is the oldest. My daughter's the youngest, and she graduates from college this year. She's a senior. Although I've had a lot of success in corporate America and in my career around lean tools and implementation, children give you a much different perspective because you can't just apply some equations or tools to them. So they have been great and have given me a lot of energy to do my professional work. I've had the great opportunity to work for some outstanding companies, global corporations in food and beverage, M&M Mars, Pepsi beverages, to name a few. And I've had the chance to make products that people around the world enjoy, and at the same time hone my skills in leadership thanks to some great support that I've had in industry, and also develop skills around a lean mindset, lean tools for helping to drive cost reduction and improve profitability.
That's amazing. Well, I can relate to your passion for parenthood because I'm also a parent, and I have to say I admire your um, position where you have now launched three children successfully into college and into the working world. Do you have any secrets? Because I'm kind of right on the precipice. We haven't quite put anybody into college yet, but we're beginning the stages with our first exiting the house next summer for his first year into college.
Yes, I think the biggest advice I would say is don't rush it, because once that moment comes and it's gone, it's gone.
Mhm.
And so enjoy the moments that you have with them. Enjoy the good times and just cherish it, and keep them connected to the love and energy that you have for their success. And to me, that gives them a good foundation to grow from. But there's no real advice I could give a parent once they're gone, because luckily you're left with the memories, and the times that they come back to visit and you get to connect with them are truly some cherishable moments.
Yeah. Last summer, we took a big adventure, and it was to learn how to scuba dive
Oh, wow.
in Roatan. So it was quite a trip for us, um, with all the boys in the house. And as we were there, I don't know if you've ever done a scuba diving adventure. I hadn't, so I had no idea. It's very rigorous, and you go through a lot of course learning. It's book learning as well as learning in a pool, and then you go out into the ocean, and it's kind of a mix
Mm,
of all three. But there was one moment where we were all there together, and our oldest had this, I could see it come to his onto his face, this reality that he would leave and go to college or
mm,
enter into the next phase of life. and he realized he may not be included or come back into the fold for these future adventures that we planned as a
As a
family
family.
for our summers. And it was a really kind of terrifying moment as well to sit there to watch his reality dawn on him 2 school years before he would be leaving for college, but also to think, wow, we have to reshape how we do our lives together, right? Whether we fly him in or we organize, because it's this end of this iceberg, right? And there's sort of a jump into the cold ocean, but you don't really want it to be over because they're finally so much more fun to talk with and
Right.
enjoy the world with and bring all their learnings. How do you find that balance between bringing them back into the fold while also letting them launch into their world as young adults?
Yes. Now that's a good point to think about. And I think it naturally happens. We schedule time. Like last year for Thanksgiving, we went to Sedona, Arizona, and we did some hiking in Sedona and spent some time in Arizona. We spent some time at the beach in San Diego. So thankfully, they still like to spend time with me, and they come back, and I'm the career opportunist now with them. I take whatever time they give me, and I don't ask for any more, and I'm thankful of whatever I get. So, and it makes each moment we share just a tremendous time to be together, and I'm more patient as a result. I realize with them, because I know that the time is limited now compared to when they lived with me all the time.
Yeah.
But those moments unlock so much joy that it's still great opportunities to be together.
That's amazing. Well, Daryl, you're a very likable guy, so I have no doubt that they're going to only learn to enjoy more and more time with you as it transforms out of that child-parent relationship and into more adult, right? Adult
Right.
relationship that you have. So, on that note, you and I have had a few conversations, and I can imagine your professional journey has primed you very well to navigate this step you're taking with your young adult children into being a mentor, into learning how to navigate the world career-wise. Why don't you back us up in the story of your personal life and tell a little bit more about where your career began
Hmm.
and what has brought you to a place where you are an author and a speaker about transforming your career and developing your leadership style?
Sure. Well, I studied mechanical engineering at Tuskegee University. I had no idea. I wanted to do something that was difficult. I liked math. I liked science. So I wanted to solve problems. So a high school teacher said, you should study engineering. I had no idea of how I would use that discipline. I enjoyed it. And then during the career days when companies would come onto campus, I learned about manufacturing. I thought, okay, I'll go to manufacturing. It'll help me learn the concepts that I've done in school, solving mathematical equations. And so my first job, I was given the opportunity to lead a team of people. I worked for GE, and we were doing maintenance on steam turbines and gas turbines. And they told me that I would be with a more experienced leader, helping me integrate into the role. And we would be leading a team of maintenance mechanics through doing an overhaul on a steam turbine. So I was supposed to work the night shift. I got a call during the afternoon that said, hey, the guy Joe you're supposed to work with tonight, he's sick, he won't be in, but don't worry, come in about an hour earlier. The gentleman on day shift will get you ready, help you get integrated. Here are the key numbers that you call if there's an emergency. You'll be fine, kid. So as I go in the hour early, one of Joe's kids or Jim's kids was sick. I'm at school and he had to leave early. And here I am, first job, first opportunity to work. I'm thrust into the middle. We were doing an overhaul on a $20 million piece of equipment for a customer. And so as I walked in, I had on this bright white GE hard hat, not a nick on the hat. It's as clean as can be. And all of the men who have been doing this work for years, some of them were old enough to be my parents, they all circled around me and looked me up and down. And I looked at their hats. Their hats had all kind of dings and dents and nicks. And they said to me, all right, GE, you're the boss. Now tell us what to do. And I mean, my heart started pounding in that moment. And so my first, nothing about engineering school had prepared me to lead a team of people. Um, and it was like I had the two choices on each shoulder. One saying, you're an engineer, you've been trained in the GE training center, just start giving orders like General Patton, man. And the other one said, I'm telling you right now, whatever you do, don't do that. Trust me, don't do that. And the pressure between those opposing thoughts was so intense that my first leadership decision was to call a timeout. So, from a sports analogy, I just called timeout. I backed out of there. I said, hey, let's take a break. I gave everybody a break on my first leadership directive, and I'm sweating. And I go down to my car. It's dark now outside, and I'm panicked because I think I've been trained in the GE Center, but something's telling me I'm not supposed to start barking orders. So I grabbed the books. I had all of the books in my car from the GE Training Center because, hey, I'm right out of college. I'm great at reading books. So I take out my flashlight in the dark with my clean hard hat, and I'm scanning the pages, trying to find this exact example of the problem that they have. And while I'm doing that, I really wanted to crank up the car and drive home. That was my real intention. But then I thought, how am I going to tell my mother I quit my first job? That I was more afraid of her than the guys upstairs. So I thought to myself, wait a minute. I started thinking about their hats and how dinged up those hats were. And I was saying to myself, wait a minute, these guys know what to do. Why am I thinking I have to go and tell them what to do? So I closed the book and I go back upstairs. They probably were watching me from the window laughing, I'm sure. And when I go back upstairs, I grab them, I bring them all together. I said, listen, men, this is my first night. I just graduated from school. I've been to the GE Training Center, but I believe you know more about this work than I do. I'm here to learn from you tonight. That's my goal. I've been given all of the numbers for key resources at the GE Center. If we run into a problem, I can make the call and get us the help we need. But I would appreciate if you let me learn tonight. And they looked at me and looked at each other and said, this is one smart kid. Get over there and get you some brats out the pot, kid. We're going to teach you something tonight. And so that was my first moment. And what led me to the book is years later, after I had grown and become an executive, I had forgotten how scary that first night was. And I thought to myself, how can I contribute and give back? There will always be people having that first night of deciding whether they wanted to be a leader or acting as a leader. And so the purpose of the book was to give them a few tools that they can use, which are around being your authentic self to begin and letting people know there's a lot to learn, but here are some things you can do to begin. Be your authentic, truthful self.
Love that story. And as you were sharing it, I was thinking about us talking a little bit before the podcast about being a cowgirl at heart. And this summer, I haven't been on a horse in a while. This summer, I took the boys back out to North Dakota. We're in the Badlands on this 1,000-acre ranch, family friends of ours, trying out a new horse that my family has invested in this past year. And it was 100 degrees in the 4 o'clock in the afternoon. He was ready to be turned out, so he had no patience for getting out there and beginning to work with somebody new. He wanted to go graze. And it's almost like when you enter into that space where you've been doing it so long, like you have from that point to where you are now, they say it's like riding a bike. It's like riding a horse. It's like throwing all the manuals aside because you have an inner knowledge and you get right back in that ring and you're able to engage in a new way and understand what's coming, right? Kind of before the actions are laid out. So I imagine now, if you were to walk into that factory at this point in your career under the same circumstances, well, I guess you probably wouldn't need to call a timeout, would you? You'd probably be able to walk right in there with a clean white hat or a dinged white hard hat and be able to say, okay, let's talk this through and probably engage in that conversation in a much easier, organic, natural way where like dive right in, right? And be able to anticipate the changes that were or the issues that may be coming up before they even brought them to you. Would you agree? I mean, is that kind of like riding a horse 25 years later?
It is in some ways, but in some ways, the more experience you have can get you into more trouble than that new guy and that GE story was in, because anytime you go into a new operation, a new organization, a new team, no matter how much experience you have, you become a new leader all over again. And oftentimes, the more experience we have, the stronger our desire is to skip those fundamental steps and just get right into it. And so today, while I wouldn't call a timeout in the same fashion, the timeout would be more internal, where I would call myself to slow down, to breathe, and take time to get to know people before I just jump right into the problem. And it's still that push is still there, because as a more senior leader now, you have more pressure to drive results, to deliver change. And so oftentimes there's a clock ticking in your head for how much time you have to do that. And in those cases, when those leaders haven't been really trained and skilled in doing the fundamentals, same with riding a horse. I've never ridden a horse by myself, but I'm sure there's some fundamentals with riding a horse. And anytime you skip those fundamentals, you open yourself up for disaster, whether it's riding a horse or if it's leading people. And so that's where the timeout would come in. And the book gives those tools in a very basic way, but they are really useful to senior leaders as well as beginning leaders.
Excellent. So let's talk about some of those tools. You're 100% right. In the horse world, there's some basics, which is you always start on the ground. The groundwork is imperative before you ever step into a saddle on the back, because it creates a trust, right? It creates a bond, and it also defines leadership, right? Who's in charge, which when you're dealing with a 2,000-pound animal, it does require you to be in charge. Otherwise, it's risky. So, what are some of those tools that you defined in your book that help lead leaders, both newly minted leaders as well as more experienced leaders, into being able to navigate some of these experiences?
Yes, particularly when you don't have all of the experience. Sometimes people see that as a disadvantage. It could really be an advantage. And I share with leaders, use it as an advantage. Because you don't have all the experience, you're more likely to ask some basic questions that people with experience skip. You would take time to get to know people. Get to know the people on the team, understand what's important to them, understand how they see things, understand the culture that they're working in, and the culture that they would like to create to make their work environment even better. And as you do that, you get to understand your role and how you can support them. because that night in a GE story, while I couldn't lead the team through, I found out I could support them. Hey, I have the numbers. If we run into problems, I can help you. So being your authentic self, knowing your strengths. My strengths was being a communicator. I had played sports growing up, so I understood the dynamics of working together with people, taking time to get to know them, being okay with allowing other people to lead in a moment and understanding that that is not a negative on you. When I took that approach, there were 3 or 4 leaders within the team that showed up and started laying out what needed to be done and who was going to do what, because they had been doing that work for 20 some odd years. And so that's really where I start with. Ask questions, be your authentic self. You have strengths, play to your strengths, and find ways to partner and build chemistry and teamwork. And then people will open up and rally to support and help you.
Yeah. So I know one of the key facets is finding your leadership signature.
Yes.
What kind of tools and tricks could you speak to our listeners about how they could find their leadership signature and put it into practice?
Yeah. Oftentimes, the things that you do really well, sometimes we'll discount because you may not do them in a professional setting. Like your example of riding horses. There are some intangibles that you could pull from that if it's something that you're passionate about, and see how you could leverage it within the professional environment. With me growing up, my passion was playing basketball. And I love the competition of playing basketball, of bringing the team together, of building the right people. And that same passion carried over into the professional environment. I played on an intramural corporate team, and I had a senior leader tell me, hey, if you approach leading your team in the factory the same way you approach us winning here on the basketball court, that level of passion will really ignite your team to follow you. And I was totally disconnected from those two worlds, right? I compartmentalized that passion with basketball and didn't bring it over into the professional realm. So I would say do a query on yourself to see the things that you're really good at. But today, there are also some professional tools. Strength Finders is one that I've had experience with. And you can take that survey and really hone in on those strengths that it says that you have, because oftentimes we get challenged to fix our weaknesses. But in the beginning, or anytime you're going into a new opportunity, I call it being a new leader all over again, really leverage and play to those strengths to allow yourself to get momentum.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that you bring up a poignant point because I'm personally in a career transition right now. So I could walk in with a new team tomorrow, and yet I have a whole history of experience, 20 plus years of experience leading teams and lead, training horses. Um, and so how would you say a new leader walking into a new team could lean into that leadership signature and begin to kind of put the building blocks back in place for this approach?
Yes, I would say when you take self inventory, you will find some people are excellent communicators. Some people can be more of an extrovert than an introvert. Some people could be better with analysis, maybe more introverted, but really good with data and analysis. So, whatever your gift or strength is, see it as a way to kind of lean in with or lead with, and look for opportunities where you can put your strength to work, while at the same time building relationships with people, feeling free to share the things where you could use more support on, and as you're building relationships with people, you're trying to understand the strengths that everybody else brings to the table. So you want to get to know them. You want to know things that they're passionate about. And in those discussions, you're looking for strengths that they bring to the table. And now you understand the problem, maybe from a higher level than they do. You want to understand it from their perspective. And then you want to blend the two. So you want to blend the problem, bring everybody together around the need to solve the problem, their roles in that problem solving situation, what's in it for the organization once we get this fixed, what's in it for them once we get this fixed, and be clear on what you need from them and giving them that ability to lead. And I have an example around that if later on you want me to share.
No, go ahead. I'd love to hear the example.
Yeah, so it was a point in my career. I was working for M&M Mars, and they had me leading a team of 80 people as a frontline supervisor. I wanted the job because I wanted to do some projects so I could get a good feather in my hat and maybe get a promotion, get off a night shift and get into a day shift job. And so I was really frustrated because if I'm leading 80 people, I didn't feel like I had time to work on projects, and it was a very daunting task. And every day, everyone would come to work, and I had saddled myself with the responsibility of making sure I told all 80 people what they needed to do. And so that was very tiring. And one night we would have these pre-shift meetings. I'm sitting in the meeting room, and I would take the time to take inventory of, did I have everybody on my team? And so I knew the people very well. So as they would come in, typically I would say, okay, Susan's here, John is here, Paul is here. But this night, as they walked in the door, my brain said, 20 years just walked in of experience, 25 years of experience, 15 years of experience. And then the light bulb went on. Again, I'd forgotten what I learned at GE. Why am I trying to tell them all what to do? There's over 100 years, 200 years of experience on this 80-person team. And so I said, okay, I'm going to do something different. When we were done, instead of giving them directives, I gave them the outcomes. Here are the outcomes. We need to deliver this amount of tons. We need to do it in an environment where no one gets hurt tonight, no lost time accidents, no food safety quality issues, no product can go on hold. I need the senior members of the team to partner with your team before we go out to the floor and think about what you need to do to deliver that tonight. And if you need my help, I'm here to support you. And so everyone went out to the floor. Now I had time to do payroll and time cards and things like that. And they would call me on the phone and say, should we speed the line up? And I'd go, I don't know. And they were like, come on, man, what do you mean? I was like, well, will it give us the outcome we need? Can we do it without anybody getting hurt? Will it damage the food quality of the products we're making? And so they said, are you serious about this? I said, yes. If you need help with any of those things, call me. So to my amazement, I watched. They started increasing the line speed. We started getting more outcome. We went beyond our goals. And then after about 3 or 4 days of doing this, the senior members in each department called a meeting with me, and they had drawn up all these plans for how we could improve the line performance by engineering projects and work. And they just needed me to be the lead person for it. And so they went above and beyond what I had even imagined by trying to be the one person doing all of the thinking on the team. And so that's what I call connecting with your people in a way to unlock their collective genius.
I love that. I love unlocking your collective genius because it's applicable in so many environments as well. I mean, back to that parenthood, you see it through education systems, right? How do you rise up and allow students in working together for team projects to really step up to the next level and not just maybe end up with one person doing the work. You see it with projects in corporate America. You see it, I don't have a lot of experience in the manufacturing space, but it sounds like you see it there as well.
Yeah.
And I would like to just go back to how you delivered on that, which to me speaks to crafting a vision for them, right? I mean, you had your metrics, but it was basically you're giving them the autonomy to say you're a very smart, educated, experienced, hands-on individuals who know what the risks are associated. So kind of go stretch yourselves and see how far we can take this without all the cumbersome of I'm the boss and I'm telling you what to do, right?
Right.
Because it limits the potential, it limits the possibility of outcomes when we put those parameters and we're waiting to be told what to do next, right? It's like a dam goes up and it stops creativity, it stops innovation, it stops productivity. And it ultimately stops engagement as well in the long term.
That's
Would you
right.
agree?
I wholeheartedly agree. And in those moments before that, what I call getting to know people, because it was 80 people, I would just walk around and talk to people. And some nights everybody didn't want to talk. And so it was okay. I might start off and just learn, how are you? Good evening. But there may be nights where you might share with me that you love riding horses. Other nights someone would share with me that they love building motorcycles. And if I was in a space of judging people, it would always be people that I never would have guessed they did these things outside of work. And so that time of getting to know them and understanding how diverse these 80 people were with their interests outside of work. Some were coaches of teams, some were umpires of teams, and they were doing things that they were really passionate about. And I said to myself, I have 80 amazing people with me, but I'm limiting them by these few things. But when they leave here, they're doing all types of outstanding things. And this really came to play. If I can share one more quick story, this really came into one night I walked in and we had a major crisis. We had metal detectors on the line to protect Snickers from going out the door with metal in it. And so the metal detectors were all going off when I walked in at work, like saying, hey, we have metal. 99% of the time, they never go off. We do checks periodically on them to make sure that they're working. This night, they're all going off. And I tried to call my senior leaders to get some help, and I couldn't get through to anyone. And in that moment, I stopped the operation because remember, one of the goals I gave them, put no product out the door that could impact quality.
Right.
And so I stopped the line. I pulled them all in the office. I said, here's the problem. This is the situation. And then those leaders that I had given the autonomy to, I asked them to work with their teams and bring back to me ideas around what we should do to try to figure out where this problem was and how to mitigate it. And we're not putting out any product until we do. And we went back and forth maybe for about 8 hours. We'd start up the line for a little bit. We'd implement some of their ideas. We start up the line to see if it fixed it. Alarm still going off. We'd shut it back down. We'd come back into the room. And I tell you, their commitment to making sure our brands protected the consumers. Now I had all of their best ideas, all of their imagination, all of that passion, and they trusted me that they could stand up in front of me and say, nope, we shouldn't start up until we do these things. And I would say the biggest success story I found when unlocking your collective genius, we didn't let any product out of that factory that could put the brand of Snickers at risk, or my children ate Snickers at the time. They were 2 or 3 years old, right? And so all of us had that level of purpose and commitment to ensuring that we protected any consumers of that product. And so it sounds so simple and cliche, get to know people, be your authentic self, but the power of what you can unlock when you have a group of people focused on a common goal and committed, and they trust the leader, this, you can't imagine the things that you can create. I say there's no problem you come across that's unsolvable when you take that approach.
I love your passion. And I have to be honest, as a consumer of Snickers, Halloween is coming up. It's an appropriate time to start diving into the candy jar. You don't, it's easy because our society, our food system can become disconnected, right, from the people who are there responsible for it to the end product that you maybe pick up in a Costco or other retailer of choice. And it's amazing to hear the passion and the work that goes into that space to, like you say, protect the consumer, ensure that the highest quality is put out, but also needing to meet those corporate KPIs that they require and not being willing to. I think that's a powerful point. Not being unwilling to stop the process and say, nope, we're not going to deliver results tonight until we figure out what our issue is, and be willing to recollect, go back to the drawing board, new ideas, new fixes, implement, and that quick implementation, quick fail when they didn't work, and back to the drawing board. I feel that's a little bit where you have been with me on this journey as we launched the culture chat, which is the first round didn't record properly, right? It just wasn't what we wanted it to be for the top-notch experience. And so we made a quick decision. Down it came. 2 days later, here we are re-recording, and it's that innovation and that passion for what you're doing together that really can elevate productivity, engagement, experience, and everything that ties into how not only consumers maybe experience the Snickers brands, or our listeners experience the culture chat, but also how we experience the conversations we're bringing to the table as the hosts or as the workers in the factories. So I think that's one of the reasons we connected and embarked on this creative journey together for the culture chat. But since we're talking about unlocking, let's talk just for one more minute about, Daryll, where do you see the future? You published this fantastic book pre-COVID. So what's coming next for you in your own personal leadership and career development that you're on?
Yes. But before I answer that, one thing I would say, I can't take all of the credit for that, right? Women in Mars did a great job of building mission, vision, and values that I could connect to as a leader. So in that moment, I was connecting to the organization's values and mission statement. And one of those values was quality is everybody's job. And so I think a lot of times organizations, we may hang these values up on the wall, but people are really listening. And so taking the time to get them right is important. So I just wanted to say that. And thanks for
Yeah.
giving me a chance to say that. The future for me, as I've gone on this journey of leadership, as I learned tools around productivity, lean manufacturing, maintenance, and while those have always been enjoyable to learn a new way of doing something, AI today, leadership has always been an area of just fascination and interest for me. And so I've always immersed myself in trying to learn more and more and more. And what I learned is you can live a lifetime and never have learned it all or enough. Right. And so it's great to be able to be on a forum like yours to share some of what I've learned to help people on their growth journey and leadership. But one of the areas that I believe is real critical, and it's an area I went through, is ensuring that leaders understand the importance of mindfulness and mental health on this journey. Because I went through a period of being depressed, not recognizing that I was going through depression. And as a leader, I had some losses in my life. My brother passed away, my dad passed away, and there were like 6 months in between the two of them. And I'll be honest, organizations gave me the support of the employee assistance programs and things like that, which was really good and thoughtful. But there's another level that we need to go to with our leaders, because for so long you're built up as the strength of the operation and you're less willing to admit when you need help. So all those programs were there. I used to offer those programs to my associates. And here I am feeling like, no, I can muscle my way through this. I can get through this on my own. And so as I looked at why, I think part of it, you feel like no one can see a chink in the armor. Because if they do, then maybe that means you're not a good leader anymore and you should be discarded. And sometimes maybe that's just in our minds. But I want to do a book to letting leaders know it's okay to ask for help.
Yeah.
It's okay to share that I'm not okay. But more importantly, as I look at my journey, there were tools that I developed along the way that I thought I was doing for the moment I was in, but really I was grabbing those tools. I needed to leverage them when I went through this period of being depressed. And there were tools like exercising, doing yoga, meditation. Those things really saved me, and allowed me to have a reawakening, a renewal. And so I want to, just like I shared early on the GE story in the book for new leaders, I want to share I think it'll help all leaders, but I think in particular, I think there is a lot of more senior leaders, especially male leaders, I want to step out and say, who are suffering in silence. And I want my next book to let people know it's okay to be vulnerable and ask for help and get the help.
I think that is such a poignant point and so valuable for our listeners, because on the last note, I think, can all acknowledge that there's a lot of challenges happening in the market right now. So many of our workers in every industry has been affected by volatility, change, uncertainty in the markets, right? And loss of jobs, like all of these components. And with it comes both sides of the coin, which is maybe you're impacted by change and you're figuring out how to pick up the pieces and move forward, or the team around you has been impacted by change and you're sort of left standing there holding the bag, having to pick up the pieces around you. And I think COVID was a time where we really peeled back the layers and said, okay, we probably need to be more honest about how these external influences are impacting our workers, right? And the culture that the companies can set to define whether or not we're taking care of ourselves as employees on an ongoing basis, or we're expected to just muscle through, right? And keep hitting our KPIs and our metrics of success. So it's sounds like a powerful topic. I, for one, would be keen to, of course, read it and understand. I think that I also have had a learning of figuring out how to take care of myself and navigate large scale change personally and professionally that I have had a hard time being vulnerable about. It's not the easiest position to be in. As you said, you're really groomed back in that early story at GE to walk in and be the leader and have all the answers. And then suddenly you don't. And you're kind of asking yourself, well, now what do I do? Or even bigger than that, now who am I if I don't have all the answers? Because
That's
we
right.
do identify very deeply with those roles that we end up in. Well, Daryll, this has been a fantastic conversation. I am so thankful that you came back on to re-record with me. I look forward to the next steps, a book in the future about being vulnerable and focus on taking care of ourselves in the work world as we know it now, post-COVID. Once again, Daryll Bryant, the author of Lead, Engage, Deliver, joining me here on the Culture Chat where conversation and culture connect. Thank you for your time, and to our listeners, keep an eye out for our next podcast being dropped soon. So follow the YouTube channel, follow us on LinkedIn, and you'll stay up to date. Thank you.
Thank you, Olivia, for having me. Can I share with your listeners where they can find the book as well?
Absolutely.
Okay, and the book again is called Engage, Lead, Deliver: Leadership Tenets to Unlock the Collective Genius of Your People, and it can be found on Amazon online books, and Barnes and Noble's bookstores. And thank you so much for having me, Olivia. I appreciate it. This has been fun.
Perfect. Thank you, Daryll.